Okay, thank you, Shakti. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome back to Grammatist, the show that sharpens your language skills for the corporate world and beyond. I am your host, Monishree, and it's Monday at 5:30 p.m., the perfect time to enrich your English for your everyday professional use. And we are on DC Live, the voice that reminds you we care, we share, and we are on air. Okay, so today we're exploring a letter that shows up in education, emails, evaluations, executive decisions. That's the letter E. So we'll start off from the shortest forms to the powerful corporate vocabulary. These E words will help you in sounding more precise, confident, and credible at work. So let's begin with a few small building blocks like our 2-letter and 3-letter words. Now, English does not have any independent 2-letter words that start with the letter E, but we do have a few short forms or abbreviations. For example, ED, spelled ED, that is the short form commonly used for education. You may have heard a lot about ed companies, edtech companies. So the ed over there stands for education. And another example, another word is EX or X, which is usually used to refer for a former role or a former status for someone. It can also be used as a prefix meaning out of. Now, when we take an example of a former role, we can use it as a common example. We're talking about your previous project works. For example, my ex-colleague or my ex-project manager. If you say, okay, my ex-project manager now leads a regional office. So I'm talking about someone who was my manager before. Another abbreviation or 2-letter E word is ET, which is the short for etc. We have used this very common, which simply means other similar things. For example, when you're listing out saying, okay, make sure to carry your laptops, chargers, adapters, etc. It just means there are more to add on to that list. Those were the 2-letter words. Now let's start off with a few 3-letter words that start with the letter E. The first word is end. End simply means to bring something to a closure, to a conclusion. For example, let's end this meeting with a quick recap, or let's end the show with a powerful punch. Another 3-letter word is era. Era simply means a distinct period of time. It can be marked by maybe a particular event, a character, or something in general. So, for example, we are in the era where remote work and virtual meetings are completely normal. Or the most common one right now is we are in the AI era, where AI is everything. The next 3-letter word is ear. Ear, as all of us know, is the organ used for hearing. But in the corporate world, people will use this as the ability or willingness to listen. So when you say someone has a ear for your information or for your feedback, it means that person has the willingness to listen to you. For example, a good leader will always have a ear for feedback, especially when the team is under pressure. So those were the 2-letter and 3-letter words. We have a great start. Let's move forward to a few more bigger words. We'll discuss a few 4-letter and 5-letter words that appear in our regular corporate emails, performance reviews, and project discussions. Let's start with a 4-letter word, earn. Earn simply means to receive something. It can be in the form of money, trust, recognition, any form. For example, you earn a long-term trust when your actions match your words. Or you earn a recognition through a certificate if you complete a course. Another 4-letter word is exit. Exit simply means to leave, to move out of a place or a situation. For example, if the results are not sustainable, we must have a clear exit strategy. It means we need to have a strategy to get out of that particular place. The next 4-letter word we're going to discuss is edit. Edit spelled EDIT, which means to reverse, correct, or improve something. It can be in a written content or a visual content. For example, please edit your reports to make sure it is matching the recent data. Or please edit your client proposal to remove any long, confusing sentences. The next 4-letter word is else. Else simply means different or in addition to something that was already mentioned. So if you have mentioned an option and you want to give an additional option to it, then you can use the word else. For example, if this idea we have does not work, What else can we try within the same plan? The next four-letter word we have is even. Even simply means balanced, fair, or level. And sometimes people will also use the word even to add emphasis to a certain sentence. Now, let's take an example where you add an emphasis. I can say a small change on how you write your emails will make you sound professional. Or I can add emphasis by saying even a small change in how you start your emails can make you sound more professional. So the even over here is just giving emphasis for the small change. Those were the four-letter words. Let's start discussing a few five-letter words. The first five-letter word all of us have used commonly is Excel. It refers to the spreadsheet that we commonly use. Though we don't use Microsoft Excel, we still prefer using that word in a sentence. Or in English meaning, it means to do something extremely well in a particular area. For example, you excel in client communication when you listen carefully, respond clearly, and follow up on time. The next five-letter word is entry, which is spelled E-N-T-R-Y. It simply means the act of entering a single record or in a list, in a system, or in some database. So whatever you fill in your databases, every single record you fill is called an entry. In a sentence, you can say, for example, one wrong entry in the financial spreadsheet can affect the entire monthly report. This is something all of us critically work on regularly with our work. Another common five-letter word that starts with E is early. Early simply means before the expected time or before the scheduled time. For example, joining a virtual call a few minutes early helps you check your microphone, camera, and slides and keep you prepared. The next five-letter word we have is error, which is spelled E-R-R-O-R. Error means a mistake or inaccuracy in something. For example, a simple typing error in an email address can delay an important response to a client. Okay, so those were the common four-letter and five-letter words. Let's move on to exploring the vocabulary that is a bit more longer. We're going to talk about a few more advanced E-words that appear in conversations with leadership, maybe in your performance reviews, in strategic planning. And we'll also talk about how the shorter words can appear inside or along with these longer expressions. All right, so let's start off with a few lengthier words where you have a few short words combined with a prefix or a suffix. For example, the first word I have is effective. Effective means producing the intended or desired result. For example, an effective email is short, clear, and focused on action. So whenever you use the word effective, it means producing the intended result. Whatever you're looking out for is there in the result. The next word is efficient. Efficient means achieving maximum productivity with minimum wasted effort. Without wasting much efforts, you're achieving your maximum productivity. For example, an efficient process helps the team avoid repeated error and saves time for more creative tasks. The next E-letter word we have is engaging. Engaging means interesting and able to hold someone's attention. So, for example, when you employ stories, questions, and visuals, your presentation becomes more engaging and people are more likely to remember your points when something is engaging. The next E word we have is empathy. Empathy is something very important. It is the ability to understand and share your feelings with another person, share the feelings of another person. For example, empathy at workplace helps you earn trust and keep the communication human. It means you're trying to understand what that person is feeling, what is the problem or what is the feeling they have when you're trying to understand some situation. The next E letter word we have is evaluate. Evaluate simply means to assess or judge the quality, value, or impact of something. For example, after every project, you need to take some time to evaluate what worked, what did not, and what can you try better next time. Our next E word is employ. Employ simply means to make use of something. In corporate world, it also means to hire people to work for an organization. So when you take the meaning of make use of something, for example, we can say we employ digital tools to track progress. And we also employ specialists to analyze the data. So we have used employ in both ways. Employing digital tools means you're making use of digital tools, and employ specialist means you're hiring specialists for that particular task. So those were a few lengthier E words. Now we'll discuss a few corporate essential words that start with the letter E as well. The first word I can remember is empowerment. Empowerment is simply the process of giving people the authority, the resources, and confidence to make decisions. For example, true empowerment means your team doesn't wait until the very end to act. They can make early decisions, correct an error, and move forward with confidence. That was what true empowerment means. Another important E word in corporate essentials is engagement. Engagement means the emotional and mental connection that people feel toward work and organization. For example, high engagement is not automatic. Leaders must employ recognition, feedback, and meaningful work to earn it from their teams. So we have used multiple E's in these examples. High engagement is not automatic, and leaders must employ the recognition and feedback to make sure they earn it from their teams. The next, the most common E word all of us have been hearing is escalation. What does escalation mean? Escalation is the process of raising an issue to the higher authority or a more specialized team where it cannot be handled at the current level. If there is some major issue, some concern that needs to be highlighted to a higher authority or to the specialized team, that process is called escalation. For example, if a customer's complaint is serious, don't just hope it will end on its own. Follow the escalation process and involve someone who can resolve it. Or if there is a repeated error, that particular error will be escalated to the higher officials for them to review and provide a feedback for you. The next E letter word we're going to discuss is estimation. Estimation simply means an approximate calculation of time, cost, or effort that is needed for a task or project. It can be a calculation of anything, but it's just an approximate. For example, accurate time estimation helps you avoid over-promising, and it also allows the team to deliver without rushing. The next E word we have for today is entrepreneurship. It is spelled entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship. This is the ability and the willingness to start a new venture, to take calculated risk and innovate. And inside companies, this often appears as intrapreneurship. So we have two words, entrepreneurship, which is the ability to start a new venture, take risk, innovate. And if you're trying to start a new project within a company, it can be called as intrapreneurship. Now, for example, let's try putting this word in a sentence. The modern organizations employ the spirit of entrepreneurship by encouraging employees to propose new ideas, test them on a small scale, and exit quickly if they don't work. So that is an example of how you can use entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, as I spoke, simply means the ability and willingness to start some new ventures and take risks to innovate. Okay, so that brings us towards the end of our journey today to the letter E. Today's words remind us that effective communication is not about using the longest vocabulary, but about choosing the right word for the right moment. Now, here's a quick challenge for everyone listening for this week. I want each of you to try using at least 3 of today's words in your next interaction. It could be a conversation with someone, maybe an email, maybe a message to your team lead, anywhere. See if you can use at least 3 of the words you have learned from today in your next interaction and let us know how it works out. Thank you for tuning into Grammatist on DC Live, where we care, we share, and we are on air. I'll see you guys on next Monday at 5:30 p.m. Until then, keep listening, keep learning, and keep elevating your English one letter at a time. See you, everyone. Thank you.